Welcome to the Mojo for Musicians podcast from Manny Cabo Media, where we dig deep into today's top strategies to help you take your music career to the next level, along with real, raw, and uplifting conversations with industry professionals that are making moves, making a difference, and making the best versions of themselves to inspire you to do the same. And for all of our Mojo Maniacs out there, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you like what you hear, please be sure to give us a positive review on your favorite listening platform. Support for the Mojo for Musicians podcast comes from Stedman, tools for the studio and beyond, because your voice deserves to be heard. Sennheiser, inspired by music. And Cranium, scientifically designed products for bald, shaved, and buzzed heads. So get your head in the game and own your dome. And now, here's your host, Manny Cabo. All right, welcome back, Mojo Maniacs, to another amazing and inspirationally filled episode of Mojo for Musicians, the source of inspiration for my ecosystem of artists around the world. And today, all right, guys, I have a guest who not only created a platform, which, as he states, is the most transparent place to promote your music, but me personally, I feel it's the most effective DIY, do-it-yourself, music promotional platform out there. And I'll tell you why. Because it affords the artist an amazing opportunity to showcase their work in front of amazing bloggers and influencers and engineers, producers, and of course, other fellow artists around the world. But I will say this. And I don't even want to call it a caveat. It's actually refreshing because there is some stiff competition on here. And in a world, in my opinion, of course, that is seemingly endorsing mediocrity nowadays and participation trophies and all that nonsense, which I completely am against. It's certainly not a place for those with ego or who constantly want to be coddled with praise, because if that's what you're looking for, this is definitely not the place. And that's the reason why I love SubmitHub. And I've submitted every single one of my singles, I don't know, the better part of, I think, 8 or so, with amazingly positive results, which means one thing: I'm doing something right. And granted, music is subjective, but in dealing with the staff of collective professionals on here and tastemakers, right, it's a great place to at least see if you're headed in the right direction, as I just mentioned. So without further delay, let's bring on our guest all the way from South Africa, Jason Grishkoff. How are you, Jason? And welcome to Mojo for Musicians, man.
Oh, thank you for having me, Manny. That was one heck of an introduction. I think you laid it out pretty nicely. Thank you for that.
Listen, I've done my research. Like I said, I completely endorse you guys. I love what you're doing out there and what you've built. And I'm beyond happy and elated to have you on the show, because I know personally you have a voluminous amount of insight as to providing so many outlets for the artists, like myself, to get their music heard, essentially, or added to a playlist, or get a blog feature, or what have you. So first off, thank you for that. And if you don't mind, I just want to dive right into this, because I'm going to be a little greedy here with my time. I'm going to try to sponge as much information from you so my listeners can truly...
Let's do it. Let's get real.
Understand what I've been harping about for so many years. So it's safe to say that this vision of yours, right, started back, I don't know, the better part of close to 16 years, right, with a blog that you called Indie Shuffle, right, when blogs were actually at their apex of interest. And of course, your background in coding and working for Google for many years allowed you to create this incredible platform known today as SubmitHub. And then gradually you realized, like most of us have, that the blog submission model was somewhat broken, right, and simply getting out of control. Now, fast forward to today, 2023. Dude, you've got 30 million submissions thus far and counting. Not to mention, you're the only developer over there. So that's like insane. And with this ever-changing industry, right, there's a perpetual need to constantly evolve. Now, we have things like AI to add to the list. So first off, talk to me about your impetus to create SubmitHub, and then share your thoughts on why it's so imperative for an artist in 2023 to include SubmitHub in their arsenal of quote-unquote promotional tools.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't want to repeat much of what you've said, but yeah, I started a music blog 2007. It was called Indie Shuffle. Music blogs weren't that cool back then, but we quickly got swept up in it. And by 2012, 2013, 2014, I was getting 300 plus emails per day from musicians who were hoping to be featured. And I was working in HR, but I was running the music blog on the side and I was picking up some coding knowledge doing that. And I quit Google in 2013 to take my music blog full time. And that was perhaps the worst time to do it because that was really when music blogs started to lose a lot of their influence. And generally, independent blogging across all mediums, knitting, bowling, and music started to lose a lot of ad revenue.
Right.
So in 2015, I was traveling around. I think I was up in Europe somewhere. I had just been in the States, and I thought, oh my goodness, I need to come up with a different plan if I want to keep doing this and not go back to Google on my hands and knees looking for a job. So I took some of the coding knowledge I had and I attempted to solve a problem that Indie Shuffle was having, which is that we had too many submissions. We were ignoring all of them. And I felt like that was a lot of wasted talent.
Now, let me cut you off there. You're like an AR rep, because AR reps go through the same thing. I mean, they get piles and piles of demos, if you will. So it's very similar to that atmosphere, if you will. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, and it becomes unmanageable after a while.
Absolutely.
You can't wake up every day and go through 300 email pitches, and definitely not when you're actually making no money from it.
Right.
So a lot of music bloggers ended up pivoting and moving into other full-time jobs, whether they were working on labels or just moving into a completely different industry. And some of the coolest blogs at the time ended up collapsing and giving up. What I did with SubmitHub was offer an alternative way to go through these submissions, actually get compensated for your time sitting there, opening them up and listening to them. And that kind of changed the model quite a bit, because up until then you would have to hire a publicist to help you reach blogs like my own, because we were so busy basically ignoring your emails. And the only way to get through was by contacting someone that had managed to build a relationship with us. When SubmitHub came along, that totally changed.
And then you have additional gatekeepers.
Yeah, gatekeepers. I mean, in a way, a lot of people argue that these playlisters and blogs, myself included, we're still gatekeepers in a way, but we're filters. We're not gatekeeping, and we don't go into it with the idea of gatekeeping. We really enjoy finding new music, but it's such a subjective, personal experience. And most music bloggers actually don't have much of a technical expertise making music or producing music. And this is something that frustrates a lot of artists. They don't realize that curators are just generally average people who enjoy finding and sharing music. They're like the people in high school who used to make mixtapes and hand them out. It's that same profile. They weren't the ones making music or playing in the battle of the bands. They were the ones sitting there and hitting record when the radio played a cool thing, making you a mixtape and giving it to you. So that's an important thing to realize with curators, is that they are, in a way, professionals, but they're working in a different part of the industry. And I think a lot of artists have expectations that the curators on SubmitHub are also going to be experts in the field. And some of them are, but I would say that the majority of them are not. So yeah, in a nutshell, SubmitHub's goal is to make the lives of curators easier and make it easier for artists to contact them. So we're really working on those connections that happen, and we want to make them as transparent and easy as possible. So we want to keep artists safe from potential fake playlists. We want to keep them safe from useless shares. There are some of our competitors who feature other curators who will either share you everywhere with absolutely no audience or all sorts of stuff. But
oh God, yeah, I'm very familiar with it too. Let's not mention any names, obviously. But but you know what?
Our goal is to curate the curators in a way. So we're making sure that they are behaving so that you, as an artist, can reach out to them safely.
Right. Now, I'm glad that you said that. That's one of the things that I really wanted to focus on, because it's essentially a great networking tool. And you're right, a lot of these professionals that are on there, they don't take it upon themselves to be so analytical. They just know what might work, what not works, you know. And again, it has to fall into alignment with their preferences as well. But
subjective.
Exactly.
Purely subjective.
I'm glad you stopped there. But go ahead, continue. I didn't mean to cut you off. That was just a great point about the networking.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, on your point of networking, and I have a feeling we're going to go on lots of tangents here, but SubmitHub isn't just about artists contacting curators, it's also about artists interacting with other artists.
Right.
So we have a function on SubmitHub called Hot or Not that allows artists to be rated by other artists. So you can go on there, rate songs by other artists, and in exchange, they will rate yours back. So it's sort of you give something to the system and they'll give something back to you. So that's a really good way to exchange ideas, and it facilitates networking because you can chat with those artists as well. So let's say that you find a song you really like, you give them a good rating and you say, I'd love to chat. We then tell that artist that Manny's reached out, he likes your song, and he wants to network. And so that networking
right.
all actually takes place through SubmitHub's chat functionality. And we've had quite a few artists come up with collaborations and duets and things like that they have ended up pushing through SubmitHub again. So the networking isn't just the curators, it's also artist to artist.
Exactly. And that's great, because that was a great segue into question number 2, because one of the things that I've noticed about delving into the platform itself, because at first glance, for me anyway, and I know I'm not the only one, I initially looked at it, I'm like, wow, there is a lot to unpack on here. So, walk me through. I know you touch upon it a little bit. Give me a quick 3 things that an artist should do once they're on the platform. Of course, they commit to using SubmitHub as not only an additional marketing platform, but a way, like you said, to network, to get an idea and feel of the industry, if you will. Or at least try it for the obvious purpose of leveraging the platform. Because till this day, I'm like, man, am I really maximizing this platform? There is so much amazing shit on here, like you just mentioned, the chat, the hot or not. And I'm constantly feeling the FOMO that I'm like missing something strategic that I could really catapult me, into a further space of success,
Yeah. So as an artist coming in, I think one of the first and most important things is to not overstretch yourself. As you point out, there's an overabundance of information and data on there.
Yeah.
We've been collecting this information for 7 going on 8 years now. So we're talking tens of millions of data points about how many listeners playlists have, how many followers they've got in their history, what their genre preferences are, who they've shared in the past, that type of stuff. And that can be overwhelming. So I think one of the first and most important things to keep in mind is that SubmitHub is best treated as a tool in a toolbox. It should not be the be all and end all. And I think a really good way to start is with a small budget, like $10 or $20, because that will help you get a feel for how the system works and sort of introduce you to the general ideas behind it. So definitely, I think starting smaller is better, because it gives you an opportunity to learn more about the platform before really diving head into it. And one of the mistakes we see people make is they spend too much upfront, spread themselves thin, don't fully understand how to optimize their targeting, and end up walking away a little bit disappointed with that. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things that I would keep in mind there. It was a really broad and open-ended question, but yeah, in general, I think the 2 most important things for a new person to pay attention to is the genre match score. Yeah. And we can touch on that a little bit later if you want, but also look at the average approval percentage of each curator.
Let's talk about it now, because that was my next question. I was going to shift that way, because it's true. A lot of people, thankfully, I took the time out to do some research. And genre matching is huge, because you don't want to submit somebody who's looking for EDM and pop and some trap, and you're a country artist or you're a pop artist, which makes perfect sense. But till this day, many don't read. And it drives me nuts when somebody doesn't read my email. It's as simple as that, but it's all relevant. Take the time out to read the curator, what they're expecting, what they're looking for, what they favor. If it is acceptable, what's the percentages of them sharing it? Right? It's huge, but like you mentioned, it seems like it's common sense, but apparently common sense isn't common practice.
Well, so my goal there is to try and make it as easy for you and help make those decisions without you having to do all of the reading. So on the genre match score, this is probably the most important thing, and it's something that we do better than any of the other platforms out there. So there are 3 elements that go into the genre match score. 1 is your genre, 2 are similar artists that you might sound like, and 3 are your moods. So the genre match has been going on this way for a while now, primarily based on your genre. So if you choose an indie rock song, I'm going to filter the list to show you the curators who want indie rock, but then I'm going to sort it according to how much they really like indie rock relative to their other genres, relative to their peers, and as an absolute number. So those factors are really important in determining how likely they are to enjoy your song within their genre. Then the similar artists, which is something new I rolled out actually about a week and a half ago.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so what I like about it is that pegging your genre down can be difficult for a lot of artists, and sometimes they get it wrong. So the idea here is that by adding similar artists, we can help counterbalance that a little bit. So if you do mess up your genre or you're not entirely sure, the similar artists are going to try to push you in the right direction and align you with curators who do enjoy that type of music. So what we do is, if let's say you put in Flume, who's an EDM artist, as someone that you sound like, and you go through this, we're going to say, okay, First, find out who the 20 similar artists are to Flume, and Spotify gives us this information. And then I go one level down in my nesting and I look at, okay, find those 20 artists and their similar likes. So I build this really big profile of artists that kind of live within the universe of Flume in this EDM realm. And then I take a look at the curators and I look at all the songs in their playlists as well as all of their history on SubmitHub. And some of these guys have been here the full 7 years. So they've got thousands of songs of history.
Sure.
And I look for overlaps in the artists and I kind of on the fly apply some sort of magic logic to this to come up with a score that kind of nudges the genre match in one direction or the other. And this gets to a point that I'm quite passionate about right now. I am not using AI to do this.
That's great.
And most of the platforms out there who say that they are using AI are simply trying to get on the buzz train and use some fancy thing here.
Right.
I wrote this code. It's like, it's looking at this, 20 or 30 million data points that it's growing and there's more data. But ultimately the code that kind of decides these matches was written by a person. So it's not machine learning, it's not artificial intelligence, it's real learning.
I was just about to say that because you're taking this algorithmic philosophy of yours and consolidating into something that sounds very, very intuitive. You're putting a number in, you put in, like this last song that I released, Paint the Gray. I'm like, this song gave me the inspiration. Now, if you remember the band The Fray, I'm like, it sounds like them. I'm just going to put in The Fray. Boom, all of a sudden, I'm typing in the curators. And it just makes it so much easier because not only do you feel more confident submitting to it, but you're not really wasting their time because they're like, okay, well, I did say I'm listening to material from Frey and Lifehouse and Daughtry, whatever the case may be. So it's not like you're imposing on them. It's not like it's unsolicited. They're going to hate this stuff. Now they're mad at you. They'll give you a lesser chance of listening to it because you submitted something that wasn't within the confines of what their interests were. So thank you for making it easier for us. Absolutely.
Yeah, but so now we're running into a bit of a problem where I'm busy telling people that, hey, this curator loves the Fray and they've got a 10 out of 10 genre match. And then when they decline you, I've been getting a number of artists who come back saying, hey, your algorithms were wrong. And I'm like, well,
oh, no.
Often this is the thing with a curator with a really strong genre match. That's often the genre they're the most picky in. They really understand that genre. So when you send them a song within that style, they love it and they can get into it and tell you why they don't like that song.
And it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. So from my side, I need to do a better job of setting these expectations because we tell artists you have to kind of check your ego at the door and have tough skin when you use this. And the same applies for myself and for my team. We are constantly dealing with artists who've had missed expectations about what they were going to get coming into SubmitHub. And 2 minutes on Twitter and you will see some people out there who feel quite strongly about SubmitHub not being an effective tool. And that's a fair criticism. It doesn't work for everyone. There are 100,000 songs released a day, according to Spotify. It cannot work for anyone.
Of course.
And any platform that does promise that their approach will work for everyone is lying to you because that's just not reasonable or feasible. So we do try to take a really pragmatic and transparent approach to this. And it doesn't always work.
Sure.
We're going to get better at it. But yeah, I think for me that the genre match is the coolest thing. And it's one of the pieces of the puzzle that I'm most proud of in terms of the way we've built this.
I'm glad you said that because we artists are such emotional creatures and we're extremely wedded to our babies. I get it. I raise my hand on that one at times. I'm like, I really feel strong about this. But as I alluded to earlier, it's not the site for the faint of heart. And for a sensitive artist looking for that, that constant pat on the back, or if it's well-deserved, of course. So let's take it a step further. Like, give me, as an artist, put yourself in an artist point of view, what are top 3 tips that you would recommend to an artist before submitting their work, right? To hopefully augment the chances of being placed or getting written up. Because, it's difficult to handle the criticisms for many artists that are out there. And I love getting constructive criticism, because that'll give me an idea of whether I need to work on my lyrics or my production, or perhaps I need to get a new engineer. But the problem is our ego gets in the way and they're like, well, wait a second, he doesn't like my music. What the hell are they talking about? So give me your perspective on what should artists really think of, or what type of mindset should they get into prior to submitting something to you guys? I think that's key, and that's a very fair question because many don't know and many rely on the hearsay. Because the reason why I jumped onto SubmitHub, ironically enough, because they said, dude, it's very competitive. Don't look for, an easy win on there. They're going to critique, they're going to be harsh, they're going to be brutal. And I'm like, well, listen, that's what I want. Working in Manhattan and New York City where they tell you, it's very binary. It sucks, or you need work, or yeah, I love it. That's more refreshing to me because I need to know if I'm on the right track here. Of course, it is subjective. I get that. But if you're constantly getting the same critique, the lyrics are weak. I really don't like the lyrics, love the voice. Or I think you really need to work on the lyrics, then something should be telling you, I need to start altering my lyrical content, right? So I'll let you finish that.
Well, one tool that people do use on SubmitHub is Hot or Not, because it allows you to send unfinished tracks through to other artists for their feedback. And some of these artists don't hold back in their feedback. One important thing is to not take a single data point as the be all and end all. It's really good to get some aggregate information, because some of these artists are just going to be full of it.
Right.
Others are going to give you some generic, yo, love it, hot beats, next song.
Right.
But in those, you'll find gems that really do put in the effort to actually give you feedback. So Hot or Not is a tool that a lot of artists on SubmitHub use to kind of pre-screen their song, if you will,
Right.
and get an idea of whether it's worth sending to curators yet or if it needs work. So I think that's one good way to do it. You've sort of alluded at this question, and I'm not sure this is the exact right way to answer it, but I think one of the good ways to use SubmitHub is as a tool to augment your broader strategy. So let's think about Spotify specifically. You might be trying to, the strategy we like to take on Spotify is that you can use SubmitHub to teach Spotify's algorithm where your music belongs. So you want to end up in playlists that feature music that is similar to yours. So if you think you sound like The Fray, our goal is to try and match you up with playlists that feature artists who sound like The Fray. Right. And what will happen then is that there's going to be a listener overlap, that people on those playlists are going to start listening to your song in conjunction with The Fray and all of these other artists. And Spotify is going to learn that your music sounds a lot like The Fray. So they'll start recommending your song to others. So SubmitHub itself isn't really a tool that can often blow an artist up. And we never try to pitch it as that way. It's to help get that snowball rolling down the hill so that it can turn into a I don't know, what is it, a boulder? No, right. A bigger snowball.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Let me cut you off here because
I
got to disagree with you on this one, because it just might, because you never know who or what curator has a better reach. And all it takes is one person to hear your track that, had you not submitted to this person, right, never came across your song, and you never know the exposure that you gain from this particular playlist, right? And this is actually, in favor for you, because I've seen it happen. My one track got something like 25,000 plays, and at first I'm like, well, as a TikTok influencer, I don't know how it's going to go. And they use my song on so many cool reels. So, and this is in defense to you, actually. I mean, it has certainly helped me.
I'm wary to do it, right? I mean, there are artists who have picked up tens or hundreds of thousands of plays through SubmitHub, but their music itself is really what's driving this. We're just there helping share it with the world.
I get it, sure.
There has to be something exceptional to music these days. 95% of the songs coming through SubmitHub are good. They are objectively good. They're mixed well. They're produced well. It's just so hard. It's that je ne sais quoi, that thing that you can't put your finger on, that makes the song excellent and really levels it up. And this is one of the difficult parts of SubmitHub, is because many of the songs that do get rejected are objectively good. It's just that people don't like it, and trying to put your finger on that is hard. So yeah, SubmitHub can boost a song. It really can get that augmentation going, but the song itself needs to be exceptional. It needs to be in that top 5% within its genre to really get the legs and start running from there. So
makes perfect sense, yeah.
One thing I like this, I like this analogy, right? One of the biggest megastars alive today in the music world is Lady Gaga. I don't know her songs, and I don't like her stuff. And the majority of people don't know her songs or like her stuff. All it takes is like one person out of 100 to enjoy her music for it to have blown up and be one of the biggest things
it's crazy. Yeah,
that has ever happened.
It's true.
So as an artist, I think it's important to not dwell on the 99 people who don't like your song. It's about trying to find that one out of the 99 who does, and then work from that to try to find that likeness, that similar audience that you can then grow from and find more people like that. So I think that's a good way to think about SubmitHub. You come in there, you get rejected by 8 out of 10 people. You don't care about them. It's that 2 out of 10 that you want to try and grow with, find more people like them, and get going from there. So that's another good way to prepare for getting into SubmitHub and the inevitable rejection that you're going to face.
Listen, I love that. If your audience doesn't change, then change your audience. Obviously you have to find out who's really enjoying your music, but it takes a little bit of work to do the research and find out where your audience is located. And a lot of artists fail to do that pre-work. That's a necessity that needs to be done. But yeah, you do facilitate so many of those things. So again, I appreciate the stuff that you're doing out there. But I'll let you finish your sentence.
That's it. I feel like I finished it.
You crushed it,
man.
To
move on.
Listen, man, that's it. This is the end of the interview.
So quick, so easy.
Yeah, I wanted you to really touch upon certain things, misconceptions, and help clarify or demystify, the hearsay. That was the big deal why I wanted you on here, because I boast about you all the time. Obviously, I tag you guys.
Stop it.
Yeah, and you're not paying me for that, obviously. But listen, question number 4 has to do with you, and the signature question of the show is your mojo. Like, what keeps you going? Because let's face it, Jason, there's a lot of upkeep and development research and keeping up with the metrics and trends and so many other components to this beast of yours. So what gets you out of bed that keeps on, motivating you to show up every day?
Well, I got 2 kids. They get me out of bed.
That'll definitely do it.
Yeah. I can probably draw an analogy to being a musician. You are crafting your baby. You love it. You work on it. This is your expression, how you get through your day. It's the thing you work on. It's your creative outlet. It's the stuff you love. And that's how I feel about SubmitHub. It's my baby. When people critique it, that stings. When people enjoy it, that's rewarding.
Sure.
As I grow it, that's even better. And so I think it's a lot like being a musician and crafting your music. The thing that keeps you going is just that passion and that enjoyment of doing it. And I count my blessings that I get to do this full time. I know there are many musicians out there who wish they could also do it full time, but I mean, that glimmer of passion that you see as a musician is the same type of thing that gets me up and keeps me going here. So yeah, we got a ton of stuff. Next thing I'm working on here is the SubmitHub Marketplace. That's coming out hopefully this month. So that should be pretty cool. It's like Fiverr, but for music.
More goodies for us. All right.
Yeah. So if you're listening, you can check out submithub.com/marketplace. It's in very early beta, but that's going to be pretty cool. I hope it will be cool.
It sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. And what else? What else you want to advertise? This is your moment to shine. This is your moment to share anything. What's in the future for Jason?
No, that's about it. The similar artist one is the coolest thing that's come out in the last month or 2. And then this marketplace will be the next one that's going to be cool. So that is the main project I'm working on. And if I'm lucky, I manage to get 5 hours a week on that. And the rest of my time is spent on chasing up bugs, optimizing features, and dealing with customer support tickets. So if you ever open up a customer support ticket, you might contact me.
Oh, man, that's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Grishkoff, the CEO of SubmitHub. Dude, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and all your knowledge and giving we artists an opportunity to showcase our work, man. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm going to keep submitting my stuff. Perhaps maybe, throw me 1,000 free credits. I'm not going to complain. But anyway, that's another story. Listen, bro, I totally appreciate you. We got to do this again, and I'll let you know when the episode airs, man. Thank you so much, Jason.
Cool. You too, Annie. Cheers.
This has been a Mojo for Musicians podcast. If you're a musician, industry professional, or a voice with a powerful message and wanting to share your mojo and stories of success with our listeners, or simply share some feedback on today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. As always, much love and peace. Live to inspire. Thanks for listening.